Chris Voss gave me a huge 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon, and I'm grateful to him for bringing you today's video. Nissa Worldsoul Speaker versus Queen Kayla, the first Sliver, and Temmet. A one-lander is not good. This is my second round with this deck, and I couldn't get into a decent opener in the first game either. That is slow, but we've got plenty of mana at least. In my experience, I've pointed out a lot now, players on Magic Online tend to run all their interaction really quickly as soon as they just have the mana held up. We draw into Barliged Recovery, so it can actually pay dividends if you actually decide to go a bit slower in the early game sometimes. Sometimes a player just gets turn 1 Sol Ring and takes over the entire game, but more often than not you can catch up to players who empty their hand really quickly. Library of Leng for the Boros player. We draw another land, so doing nothing on turn 2. Not going to play the tap land, we might make use of this as a sorcery when we have a surplus of lands available. Jadar has been played into the new Path of Ancestry. We've got some cool artwork from this new set. I do really like some of the artwork. A Zenith Chronicler, that is a multicoloured spell, yeah. So he has 2 multicoloured permanents. I'm looking forward to seeing Temmet, by the way. Haven't really looked at this as a commander, but hopefully we'll be able to see some good stuff. We draw into the first thing we plan on cheating in. So I'll drop a land. Let's go for Tyler's Provisioner. Probably play my commander next turn. The 2/2 zombie turns in towards us and will be sacrificed at the end of the turn with Decayed. A Felwar Stone for the 5 colour player who is probably going to be able to tap that for any colour, I think. And then the Boros player gets down a red mana, but it's tapped. That's a Springheart Nantuko. That would be funny to copy a bunch of Tyler's Provisioners, but even better would be Rampaging Aetherhood. Get a hell of a lot of energy. Let's make a land straight away so that we can cast the Nissa, hopefully not into some spot removal by Temmet. We at least get to make some treasure with the Tyler's Provisioner. Ideally you'd only play your Nissa into a land, but I've got this idea of wanting to play Kodama's Reach into it. Let's swing at the first Sliver. Deal 3 damage over there. Turns out there's no spot removal being held up by the Temmet player that wants to go onto Nissa apparently. Might still have a Swords or something like that though. Last Monarch of Ifnir has a flick 3, gives other zombies a flick 3, so that makes it difficult to block. You're taking damage regardless. If a player was dealt damage by a zombie this turn, mill 3 and return a creature from graveyard to hand. So that's a nice lord. They don't all have to be +1/+1. Decayed Zombie swings in over there and it is going to deal damage, so he's going to get a bit of card advantage potentially. Mills 3 and we see a Blade Stitched Scab as well as a Funeral Room, Awakening Hall, and then he's got rid of a... oh wow, we've got Unholy Grotto with a new frame finally. It's only been about 20 years. 2 slivers into play. Speaking of lords, we've got the Winged Sliver, gives them all flying. Predatory Sliver gives your slivers +1/+1. It is noteworthy that with slivers they've kind of mixed them up over the years. So some care about your own slivers and some care about all the slivers in play. So if anyone plays a Changeling, probably won't have a sliver of their own, but if they play a Changeling then it will have flying thanks to this. Queen Kayla and Zenith Chronicler does trigger on his own spells, which I'm not sure I remembered that, but yeah, he gets to cantrip on his commander. Yeah, so that drew us into a Return of the Wild Speaker, which we don't mind seeing, especially if we're going to look at getting down this next turn, which I'm not sure if we'll be able to. I can't be bothered working it out. Draw another land, so I'm not going to show my opponents that we've got lands in hand, although they probably assume we do. Go for the Kodama's Reach because we managed to keep hold of our Nissa. Don't have additional lands that we can make every turn yet, unfortunately, but we get 2 lands here with the Kodama's Reach. So 1 into play tapped, 1 into hand. Obviously, we get to play 1 for the turn as well. A treasure and our first couple of energy from the commander. So what I might do then is just... Tyler's Provisioner is going to be a lightning rod for removal anyway. So I might just go for making copies of that and try and get the removal out of their hands. And if no one does remove it, then we're just making a bunch of mana, so not the end of the world. Play a forest, get another couple of energy, and now we are triggering Tyler's Provisioner, Nissa and the Nantuko, and I am going to say yes to this. Not sure I've copied things that much with Nantuko, but there we go. 2 Tyler's Provisioners, So now every time we make a land we get 2 treasure, and we're already up to 4 energy. No decent attacks really, so yeah, that being a 4-3 isn't the worst, but I'll just hold back for now. So that one, our opponents just grabbed it. Other zombies get +1 to power. It's a 2 mana 2-3, and we're going to draw a card from the Chronicler, so there's more card draw for us. We're doing quite well here. I suppose I should get into the habit of mentioning brackets here and there as well if you'd like me to. I don't know if you care about hearing about brackets or not, but this is a bracket 3. There's no 2-card combos. It has Ancient Tomb and Gaia's Cradle are the game changer cards, so below 3. And then we have Gonti's Ether Heart, which is an extra turn card, one of the few energy payoffs in mono green. So if you do want to hear breakdowns of the brackets of the decks that I'm running, then be sure to let me know. I'm not sure if I'll get a chance to make a video about brackets, but I think I might be eating my words on the introduction of brackets. I didn't think it would make that much of a difference, and people seem to be falling into line with them. I think people like rules and regulations from the higher-ups, as much as I hate to say it. That's why they look up to the rules committee and things like that, or at least they did. So yeah, it might actually be making a difference, surprisingly. I thought everyone on Magic Online would just ignore it, but I'm quite hopeful so far. And Accursed Marauder, we have to... do we give up on Nissa and keep the Provisioner? Yes, because the more mana we make, the easier it is to get our commander back in. And our commander is probably going to be a bit of a lightning rod for removal as well, so it's safe in the command zone for now. If we can keep these creatures in play, it's actually going to get to a point where we just get free tireless provisioners because we play a land, get enough treasure to just pay for that straight out. Anyway, a 5-4 swings in towards us. We could get rid of this now, which might be worth doing. 3-2 to the right. I think I just want to make a boatload of mana, to be honest, so we'll give him the mill. Looks as though our other opponent is giving him the mill as well. So with that, it is Talisman, Swords, good to know he doesn't have, Roaming Throne we just caught a glimpse of. It should put those in some, it's not technically revealed, but it should keep track of those in the revealed zone for us really. No, it's noteworthy. I thought he'd get multiple triggers of this, but it's if a player was dealt damage. So he only gets to mill 3 with that. Pillar of Origins, choose a creature type, so no prizes for guessing what he chooses. Another tribal rock, that is Icon of Ancestry, gives +1/+1 as well. Only 4 cards in hand and 1 Sliver in play at the moment. So let's see, he's got 7 cards in hand. See if he can do anything with the discard. Played a land first, so he goes down to 6. And does activate the commander, as we were expecting. He is discarding instead of putting things on top. That is Aki, Scrape Chomper, Puppet Strings, Lost Shield, Battle Mage's Bracers, Crystalline Crawler, and a Steel Overseer. So he's allowed to get himself into Aki, Lost Shield, and Steel Overseer, and draws a card with Lost Shield, going back up to 7 in hand. So that's some decent value for our opponent. Alright, there's an Ether Hub for us to get us a bit more energy. Let's drop our commander first. Not getting into any fetches or additional land drops yet, unfortunately. So let's just play the Ether Hub, should be fine. And I think with the 4 mana, I don't think there's much of anything we can really do. We're not going to have enough energy to cheat anything down. So I might just make yet another copy of the Provisioner, to be honest. I was hoping to have this thing in play by now to start making more energy. And yeah, I think I will go for another copy of it. That way, if this thing swings in towards us again, I might just block with the original. We're not doing anything else with the mana this turn, so we might as well just get another Tireless Provisioner. Yeah, pass the turn at that. Hope that we keep Nissa in play. Energy away from cheating in the Kozilek. Didn't get into a fetch or anything during all this, unfortunately. But it is noteworthy that it does count as being cast, so you do still get the cast triggers on the Eldrazi. Arcane Signet gets some new artwork as well. Temmet into play for the first time. The 5-4 going elsewhere this time. We get the Decayed Zombie, so we'll just have to take a hit for 3. I'm not going to block a Decayed Zombie. Temmet triggers, so draw and then discard. Decides to discard Corpse Augur. And because he drew, that is an additional damage going through to all of us. Still not going to block the 4-3. We take 3 to blocking it anyway, thanks to us not getting rid of this previously, which might bite us. but I'm glad to see that we're seeing some play out of the Lost Monarch because it is a really good one for zombies. So he mills, and we see Murderous Rider. Didn't realise that had new artwork either. Kindred Dominance, glad to see the back of, and a land. So he now has spot removal for 3 mana available in Swift End. We need to try and remember. Well, there's a Windfall. I think we had pretty much a full grip there, so we're going to draw a decent number of cards. Kozilek, we are no longer going to cheat him. Although we're going to shuffle everything into the bin, or from the bin into the library, so we could draw back into it again. To be honest, I wasn't really loving the hand anyway. The deck isn't really flowing as much as I would like it to. Need to see like Azusa and fetches and stuff like that. Our opponent had the Endless Ranks of the Dead. Rot Hulk is good to see the back of. Roaming Throne we knew about. Noxious Ghoul, wow, some really good stuff. Oh, we didn't take the Murderous Rider. He can take any creature. He took the Accursed Marauder. I thought it had to be among the creatures you milled. Apparently not. Well, we get straight into another Eldrazi, and we can even give it haste. Problem is this gives everything haste. This is for if we want to slam down our entire library because we just make so much mana or cheat so many things into play with energy. And we just want to finish the game off, knock a player or two out in one swoop. Then we can make use of the haste. A Taunting Sliver. Slivers you control have, when it enters, goad a creature an opponent controls, so they have to swing. And decides to goad this. That's a 12-11 at the moment, but they have just drawn a bunch of cards. We are able to make an additional mana with Dryad of the Elysian Grove. We just don't have the lands, unfortunately, which is pretty unlucky. Should be able to cheat this down next turn, though. I'd rather have the Kozilek because we can draw cards with that. I think next turn, if we do go for the Ulamog, we're going to have to exile the Commander here. And maybe the Lost Monarch of Ifnir. A Soul Ring from the Boros player, managing to keep up on mana after a bit of a slow game at the start. Activating the Commander again with 6 cards in hand. Discards a Signet, some lands, Arcbound Javelineer, Arcbound Prototype, and Zerda is a scary one. Lost Shield draws again. They managed to grab themselves the Javelineer, Zerda, and the Prototype 1, 2 and 3. Then we have to be wary of the Steel Overseer. Does not have Summoning Sickness anymore, so can buff the artifacts. Hardcasts a lifelink modular creature. So yeah, this is cool. I'm liking what the Boros player's doing here. Not sure I've ever played against this, really. Activates the Overseer for plus counters. So that goes up to a 3-3, a 2-2 lifelink. Remove X counters, deal X damage to an attacking or blocking creature, 2-3. Right, we're playing into a board wipe potentially here if we go for Avenger of Zendikar, but we've just drawn into green sleeves, that might be better. I was thinking of going for the Avenger there, but we can make use of that after a board wipe, I think. I'm just thinking of the zombies keep swinging into us. So I think we definitely want Lotus Cobra in play before we make a land. We just missed out on the big card draw spells, unfortunately, to refill our hand with, in both Shamanic Revelation and the Return of the Wild Speaker. I noticed the Sliver player disconnected before, so he still isn't back. This is in the middle of the Boros player's turn, so now that it's our turn, I'm hoping that he's going to reconnect soon, but might be the end for the first Sliver. And yeah, it does disconnect, goes down to time. So we go 5 mana into this and then make landfall. Really don't want to drop this when there's a bunch of creatures on the board. So yeah, now we can go Ancient Tomb and get a bunch of landfall triggers. It's mana from Lotus Cobra we actually won't make use of here, I don't think. But we will get treasure for the Tireless Provisioner, all 3 of them. So I think I'll actually continue to make copies of Tireless Provisioner with the Nantuko. And I'll keep hold of the Ancient Tomb mana. Let's go for the treasure tokens being cracked into that. So now we've got 4 Tireless Provisioners, but a distinct lack of lands, annoyingly. Fortunately, we do now have 9 energy, so we can cheat our Ulamog into play. Hopefully control the board a little bit. Get a Badger token from the 8/8 green sleeves. Yeah, so we've got the Beast Within mana. That's good. Let's just cast this by paying 8 energy with Nissa, and we'll be able to exile a couple of things. It can be, I don't really like Zerda, but if they don't have their commander in play, then hopefully it won't be of any use to them. So I'll go after the commander and go after this thing. And then that is just a big dumb indestructible that can either eat some exile or can be a great blocker for us. Or maybe if we've got enough blockers to hold back, we can just swing in with Ulamog if we give everything haste. Nah, we've just got rid of the commander back into the exile zone. They can replay it and activate it straight away maybe. 4, 5, 6. Yeah, because Zerda's still in play. And if it's got haste, it'll only cost 2 mana with the Zerda. So, best not to put haste on the board as much as I want to swing in with Ulamog and start getting some damage flung around. We will just hold up our Beast Within mana. Suppose I could try and trade for the Temmet over here. They can't block with the Decayed Zombie. They've got a 1-1. I wouldn't mind seeing the back of Jadar is deceptively good. So we'll just go like that. A 4-3 to the left. Just decides to take the damage as you would expect. Draws a card to the draw step, so that triggers Temmet as well, buffing up the zombies. Renew Solidarity. I remember reading this one. I think it's really good, but I can't remember what it does. Creature type +1 power to creature type. For each token you control of the chosen type that entered this turn, create a copy. Yeah, for 3 mana, that is really good. Might have to... I haven't, like I said at the beginning, I haven't looked into Temmet, but I might have to build it just simply because it's an Esper zombie deck. I really like Wilhel, and I can't see that being dethroned, but Renewed Solidarity is a really interesting one to run in tribal lists. Gets a Surveil Land, might be able to throw some kind of relevant zombie into the bin. We would not like to see a Living Death from our opponent. Kept whatever card it was on top, and still decides to swing in. It is a 5-3 Decayed, so we might as well just block with the Indestructible. If they can give -5/-5 to this, then so be it. They have to attack with this as well, because it was... I actually forgot about that as well, but it just gave us a reminder on Magic Online. This thing is goaded, I think is the mechanic, so it has to swing in. And he loots whenever he attacks. Would have done that with the Decayed Zombie anyway. I think the commander, yeah, is going into the right. So gets +2/+2 and discards an Exotic Orchard. The commander currently an 8/6 and a 6/4 zombie. So he was only ever throwing the Decayed Zombie into us so that he could get the loot and look at more cards. We'll risk blocking with the Indestructible. Headless Rider, another great one. When it or another non-token zombie you control dies, create a token zombie. So he's got some board protection there a little bit. Jadar makes another zombie, and they put Renewed Solidarity on the stack first so that it resolves last, which is the correct thing to do. So if they can keep that Solidarity down and then this sees a bunch of zombies die, does this trigger only at the end of your turn? Yeah, it's at the beginning of your end step. It couldn't be every end step for only 3 mana. So they make another Decayed Zombie, both 4/2s at the moment. Surtur, I don't know how you say that. Fiery Jotun. Whenever you cast a historic spell, 3 damage to any target. So that might have to eat a Beast Within, depending on where he's looking. And there's his historic spell with the Hedron Archive. And goes after one of our things, surely. Yeah, the thing that's making the copies is finally going to go down. That's fine. 3 damage to any target. That is really good. Is that a legend? Yeah, the Assassin's Creed decks came out with some really good legends. They tend to hide the excellent legends in these Universes Beyond sets now, annoyingly. Now, I decided to let that down. I'm hoping that he doesn't have a rock that he can play into it and bolt something again. I'd rather not lose my commander here, but he does have priority, so there's nothing we'll be able to do about it. Looks like he does have something. Yep, it is a containment construct, so should have taken the Beast Within while we had the chance. Alright, this thing fell off, and he's deciding to blow it up. It's only going to make insects now, so yeah, that's not the worst thing that he's blowing that up, but still have to Beast Within onto it. I think at least we can get through this player's turn before we try to get rid of it. Draws to Lost Shield, and we'll end the turn with 4 cards in hand. The Esper player has 5 cards. I'd love to draw into some card draw myself here. Plus counter on all of his artifacts, or artifact creatures anyway. And it seems as though in classic Commander fashion we're all just kind of pointing our nukes at each other. A bunch of stuff swinging in though, so we've got a chance to get rid of some of his things here. I'd like to see the back of the Arcbound Javelineer. Oh, yeah, I thought it was weird that he was attacking there. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures. Alright, so it doesn't matter. We'll just block like that. And do we throw a blocker away or wait for it to take out something bigger? Yeah, we'll just take a hit for 3. I suppose what we could have done there is blocked and gone for taking out Lost Shield, and then we can thin out his board. But I just really don't want to play against this. This is excellent. I'm just going to hold on to the mana for now and do Beast Within at a later date. We'll make a land there at least. I don't think any of our opponents are all that eager to play a board wipe, to be honest, so I might just have to go for it here. We're not seeing a lot of the energy shenanigans, which is what happened in the last game as well. We're just being unlucky getting into lots of lands, unfortunately. I think we can go straight through to combat. So let's go Ulamog to the right and our 8-8 to the right. That would have been buffed up to a 9-9 if we've gone for landfall straight away, so that might be relevant. But we've got Beast Within held up as well, just in case, because I would like to keep this in play. This is going to exile the top 20 cards of their library, taking them down to 48 left available, which should be fine. Might be able to get rid of some pieces that he's really eager for though. We'll be able to look through his deck a little bit also. I'll do that in a minute. So we managed to get rid of this thing to the Ulamog, and he's going to take a hit for 8, going down to 18. And I think we just have to go for Avenger of Zendikar. Priority is being held up by the Esper player, only has a black and a blue held up, so maybe he has Vamp Tutor he wants to do or something like that. Anyway, Avenger comes down. If we could make multiple lands, then it might have been worth going for the haste after all, in order to buff these up and just start going wide, but I don't think we could have one-shot anyone regardless. Make a land for a bajillion landfall triggers. I've just been really trying to not play into a board wipe. If our opponents do wipe the board here, then yeah, we've got roughly the same number of cards in hand, but I think we would be worse off. But point being, I'll keep this creature in hand just in case it's of any relevance. It's got decent toughness on it. Only 3 energy at the moment, haven't managed to make a whole heap of energy. But there we go, that should be alright. We'll just continue to hold up Beast Within and pray that we draw in something good next turn. That wheel previously, it both helped us to get going, but also kind of hurt us, because if we could have limped along for a few turns like we've ended up doing anyway, then we probably would have been alright drawing into cards with our 5 mana spells. Anyway, +1/+1 on everything again with the Temmet. That was during the draw phase. And now a Crypt Breaker, that can draw cards as well. Yeah, tap 3 zombies, draw a card, lose a life. Decides to tap down his creatures, the Summoning Sick one, Headless Rider and the Lord. So that's draw a card and get another buff. Then Binding Mummy, this is another reason to play white in your zombies. When a zombie enters, tap a creature or artifact, was it? Yeah, doesn't include itself, but I'm sure he can get down another zombie here. We've got plenty of blockers, so I'm not too worried. I've just had a thought actually, what would you think of me trying to make a bracket 2 version of this? I bet we could make an efficient version of this without adding all the game changer cards and stuff like that and putting a load of combos in. That might be interesting, especially if we can more easily get players all on the same page on Magic Online now with brackets, which I'm hoping seems to be the case. Zul Ashur is going to let them play 1 zombie from graveyard on their next turn. They did tap something down there, I'm not sure what it was though. I've just looked in the log, it said that he chose not to bother using the Binding Mummy. So we get a couple of 6/4s. They're going to die to Decayed anyway, but we might as well just throw some plant tokens in the way. Actually 7/5s once they loot to the Temmet. Discards Priest of the Crossing. So it looks as though this thing is looking to survive, which means as soon as we get through to the end step I'm going to have to throw a Beast Within onto there, I think. Yeah, he's got 4 cards in hand and he might be able to draw more, especially with something like this in play. So I'll let the zombies go on the stack here. Correctly puts the Solidarity on first again. And there we go, when the zombies enter it does include tokens. So tapping down our plant token this time, our means of chump blocking, and does it with a plant again. Beast Within onto this thing. Bag of Holding for the discard player. He's got a few replacement effects here, so he's got Library of Leng. The Containment Construct are in play at the same time as the Bag of Holding. Anyway, Queen Kayla into play, does not have haste thanks to us. Psychosis Crawler, yep, he's going to draw a lot of cards with his commander, potentially. He's only got 2 in hand at the moment. Did he play the wheel before? I can't even remember now. No, it doesn't look like it. That came from elsewhere maybe. I'm just wondering if he's likely to have the Wheel of Fortune available to him. Does draw with Lost Shield. So that would have been 2 lightning bolts, one from here and from the Psychosis Crawler. Drew to the Lost Shield, like I said, so when he does that, the Crawler will lose us a life plus counter on his artifact creatures. I'm not hopeful that we're going to draw into anything. It's going to have to be a hell of a top deck because there's so many cards we can draw that are going to be pretty useless to us now. 5/5 in at us. Yeah, I mean, he just swings in with all his artifact creatures here because he might as well. We're probably just going to get overrun in a 2v1. 5/5 can go on a 4/5, and then we're just throwing away plant tokens, I think. So we'll have a few plants left at least, but they can be interfered with by the Binding Mummy. Now, here's the moment of truth. Go through to the draw phase, and yeah, just a land as we assumed it was going to be. Chances are it was always going to be a land. We might have to start making food with the Provisioner, annoyingly. Just play a land straight away. And if we don't swing in with Ulamog, it's going to get tapped down anyway, so we might as well force this guy to block and exile some more cards from his library. We could, if we attack him with it again, get him down to very few cards left in his library, like below 5. I can't feel too bad about not doing too much with energy this game, because we don't even have anything in hand to cheat in anyway. But during test runs, there's some bonkers things you can do with free spells. We're up to 5 energy again though, at least. I'm just going to make some food tokens because there's nothing for us to do with the mana anyway. Is it? Yeah, it's 3 life you gain from the food, so we might as well gain 9 life during this turn cycle. If we're not too worried about taking the Boros player down to 0 life and more like getting rid of his library, then I'll probably just hold up the green sleeves as fodder to make this thing tap something down and just use this attack to get rid of the library, so we'll do that now. The plants are still only 2/3s at the moment, haven't seen a single fetch all game. Oh, the Esper player has something to do before that. That is Malakir Rebirth. Okay, wants to give it Undying, so is he about to sacrifice it somehow? Not sure what that's about. Can maybe sacrifice to draw cards with a 2-mana instant, is that what he's doing? Yeah, Deadly Dispute is a treasure as well, I think. Draw 2, make a treasure, and this thing will trigger on itself, making some zombie tokens. So, again, going to make use of this so that we can't swing in with that, I'm guessing. So a zombie enters, this definitely triggers at the end of their turn. Yeah, not that there's anything we can do about it. So taps down Ulamog, taps down green sleeves as well. We were going to leave it back as fodder for being tapped down anyway. We were just hoping he was going to do that during his turn instead of ours. He will have 3 cards in hand. That's a nice bit of interaction if he can draw cards at instant speed like that, as long as he can keep tokens in play to use as sack fodder, because he gets to buff his army and make it difficult to swing in towards. Good to see tips from the Temmet player before I decide to go and build the deck. So we're just passing through the turn and doing nothing again, and at the end step tapping down some cards in order to draw, doing that to the Crypt Breaker. He's got some more cards. Yeah, we're going to say he can do it again, so does decide to. Goes down to 30 and has 5 cards in hand. Prophet of the Scarab, is that a new one as well? I think it is. Whenever this creature enters, draw equal to the number of zombies you control. Wow, surely you have to discard to that. Yeah, it's equal to the number of zombies in play or in your graveyard, and you don't have to discard to it, so that's incredible. That's a... In this deck, it's a great overrun effect as well, which is unusual for Esper, but, well, I suppose white does it, but this is a blue spell, so draws a whole heap of cards and hopefully can't play too many more zombies, because Esper is always going to struggle on mana, meaning that he can't just tap down all our blockers. He can force us to block with some decent stuff, though. Diagraph Captain is more buffs, and when these zombies die, each opponent loses a life. 13 cards in hand, they've got 3 mana available. Tap down a Badger. I think there's a 5 mana blue zombie that gives zombies flying. I might be misremembering. I think that was from the Wilhelt deck. Maybe I am misremembering that. I think it wasn't on Magic Online anyway. Not whether there's an Urborg here as well. Not sure when that hit play. And a Death Baron, more +1/+1. This one gives Death Touch. Not really relevant when your zombies are massive. That is another zombie entering though, so tapping down another blocker. That is a Badger going down. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blockers at the moment. And they probably have just as many attackers, maybe one more. Swinging in everything apart from Jadar. You have to assume this is, yeah, coming in at us. So we'll wait for everything to resolve. Temmet is going to loot again. So they discarded to that, a Shockland. And let's see here. It's 3, 6 and 9. So we have to block with everything probably. Yeah, there's a 17, 17, a 20, 18 commander. Oh, that has menace actually. So we're going to have to take some damage. How many of these things have menace? That's the only thing with menace as it happens. The weakest creature is this 17/17, so we'll have to let that through. Let's go for food tokens being cracked. We can tap Ancient Tomb down for a black mana without paying life, which is good. Alright, so after that we're at 32, and now we have to make our blocks. So I'll throw a couple of plants in the way of the commander, and then it's just chump blocking everything else as well. We are probably not going to come back from this because we're in a mono green deck, and it's not like we can wipe the board or get a massive amount of creatures into play all at once or anything. I can't remember if I have Last March of the Ents in here actually. That might be a way to do it, but we'll make blocks and see what we end up down to. I think 15 we're going down to. Yeah, we do go down to 15, lose our entire board near enough. Nissa goes back into the command zone again, which doesn't really matter I don't think, because the best thing it's done is block so far. I think it was a good idea to get rid of this though. Imagine the amount of damage we would have taken to that attack just now. Having to sacrifice the decayed zombies means that... Oh, it's a target opponent loses a life. I thought it was each opponent. So pointing that at us. Might be that the zombie player overextends and allows this guy to do some stuff. I know he's playing weaker artifacts, but maybe he can get down a Moonshaker Cavalry or something and take us both out. Not sure what his tactic is, to be honest. So once again, Jadar. I don't think there's been a single board wipe all game, which I'm not against because games on Magic Online can be a bit board wipe heavy, to the point where you don't get battlecruiser creature-based games like this, so this is really good. It does mean that Jadar can constantly make the creatures into the renewed Solidarity. Taps down the Zerda to the Binding Mummy. Doesn't matter, it's going to untap during the draw step anyway, or during the untap step. The Binding Mummy tapping down some of the Boros creatures. Doesn't matter, they're about to untap anyway. Discarded to hand size, I assume it was. Some lands, a Graveborn Muse. He killed himself pretty quickly with that right now. An Archghoul of Thraben. I don't know that one. A 3/2. When this creature or another zombie you control dies, look at the top card of the library. If it's a zombie, put it in your hand. If you don't, you can put it in the bin. So it's just more board wipe protection, really. I suppose you could be sacrificing zombies to trigger this. Noteworthy, it does trigger off the zombies, so goes well with Decayed as well. I think it's from the same set as the Decayed set, which would make sense. Anyway, Psychosis Crawler, likely to deal a decent amount of damage to us this turn, draws to the draw step. I mean, we're going down anyway, because we've had all our stuff tapped down. Activates his commander with 4 cards in hand. So with Psychosis Crawler, it's 4 damage to us. I've been intrigued to see maybe he could deal enough damage to us off the Crawler to get rid of us, and then he can swing in over here. I'm not sure. He's putting the Containment Construct on the stack first, then Bag of Holding. So Bag of Holding is going to exile the things before the Construct is of any relevance. So maybe he's looking to refill his hand with this thing. Doesn't have too much mana. Puts under the Bag of Holding, just, it looks like a bunch of lands, unfortunately. Plays a Zephyr Boots. That is a flyer, a 5/5 flyer now. This is the downside of zombies. They don't tend to have flying. So that's a weakness, that you can fly straight over the horde. Does take down the power and toughness of the Crawler though, playing an Artbound Stinger. That's another flyer. They could still gain cards in hand even though they're only lands, and buff the Crawler if they need to by sacrificing the bag. Draw 2, lost shield. So we go down to 8. So we only need to take 4 damage here, or 4 damage apiece to 2 creatures, so 8 damage takes us out. And then, yeah, maybe he's got an answer to all this stuff. He could have Settle the Wreckage, something along those lines. You don't see that much of, even though you probably should. I suppose nowadays it will depend on the bracket you're playing in, because creature-based decks like this are not commonplace. People just wipe the board over and over again and fish for combos. But in a bracket 3 and below game, you would like to see Settle the Wreckage, I imagine. So some blocks being made, the beast token, and this thing did not buff the army. Instead, it decided to swing in as a 4/4. So as of right now, it looks as though he's handing it over to the zombie player. So of course we go down to 0. We knew that was going to happen. The Zephyr Boots will loot. Might be able to draw into something relevant. It's got the zombie player down to 10. And then down to 9 off the Zephyr Boots. Another thing they could hope for is being able to untap the commander. So they could put these back in the hand. How much does that cost though? That's 4, and then it's 4 to activate this, or 2 to activate it with Zerda. So yeah, they could still do that. I still don't think it would be enough to take him out though. He'd have 8 cards in hand, discard them all, draw that many, deal 8. Yeah, it's this relies on him being able to untap the commander as well. Yeah, he's going through to the end step, doesn't seem to have anything, so we'll assume that the zombie player, risky, drawing cards and losing life to the Crypt Breaker, he can do it again and go down to 7 life. So yeah, if this player can somehow fog or keep the damage from coming in over here, I don't know, Temmet's in blue, so he might be able to counter a Settle the Wreckage or something. The Boros player seems to be playing it out, which Magic Online players typically won't do. So 10 cards in hand to start off with. And there's a Champion of the Perished. I can't remember if they've got any zombie ETBs now. Oh, of course, the Binding Mummy. This is only a common, I think. I think it was a common in the set it came out with originally, and it's really good. And we're seeing that here. I mean, there's a million of these white tapper creature things. The vast majority of them, like 98% of them, are no good, but in a tribal list where you want to flood the board with tokens like this, and it does trigger on tokens, it makes all the difference. This thing, really, really good, and auto-include in a white zombie list. Got down another Lord, Undead War Chief, 7 cards in hand, makes his zombies cost less as well. I don't think he really needed that, maybe he's just playing it to get rid of the blockers. Lord of the Undead, another Anthem, and can return a zombie from graveyard to hand when it has its summoning sickness wear off. So if you are the zombie player here, you swing in with 4 or 5 creatures only. I mean, you've got the decayed zombies that don't matter if they get exiled. You certainly don't just turn everything in sideways. A Wizard Mentor, I don't know that one. A Zombie Cleric. That must be a new one as well. Whenever an opponent activates the ability of a permanent that isn't a mana ability, create a zombie token, but it only does it once a turn for 2 mana. That's superb as well. Plague Belcher's excellent as well. A means of your opponent's losing life. That is whenever another zombie you control dies, and that one is each opponent, unlike the Diagraph Captain we saw previously. So he's really playing into a board wipe. I don't think he needed to play this thing. Drawing more cards, going down to 6. I'm not sure what he's doing. I'm assuming that it's the summoning sick ones that he went for. He could have something like, what is it called? Nothing You Can't Refuse. He is just turning everything in sideways. I would love if there was a Settle the Wreckage here. That would be really good. Not because I want this guy to lose, but just because it would be a really cool story to tell on the video. So loots and buffs the army again. Draws another card on the way out. Our opponent's just assuming that he's got the victory, which he may well do, but you should really play around the fact that your opponent could do something. Going down to 5, and he's facing down a Psychosis Crawler. Alright, but he does just go down to minus 132 and 23 points of commander damage, so loses twice. And yeah, that was awesome. Haven't seen or looked up anything for Temmet yet, haven't even had a chance to look at it at all. So really glad to see some awesome interactions and gameplay from that commander. If you want to see more from our commander in Nissa, then be sure to let me know. That is 0 for 2 on this commander. I just haven't had the best of luck with it somehow. Playtesting I was very hopeful, but Sometimes it just doesn't pan out when you actually go to make a video. Anyway, let me know in the comments section what you'd like to see. Massive thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel as well. You can do so yourself via the link in the description below to get your name in the credits and the like. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.